The first scream came just as the priest asked if anyone objected. It wasn't from the guests. It wasn't from the groom. It came from the bride herself. Amara clutched her throat as the ancient coral beads around her neck suddenly tightened like living fingers.
Help her! Somebody help her, please!
The wedding hall fell silent. Then the oldest woman in the village rose slowly from her seat, her face pale with horror. "No," she whispered. She wore the death. And in that moment, every light in the hall went out. Amara had never seen the beads before that morning.
You look stunning.
She had been rushing to dress for her wedding
perfect.
to
Just
Tunde,
one more touch here.
the wealthy son of Chief Balogun,
Find them.
the man whose
coral
family
beads,
ruled the
they're
village of
gone.
Unwoka. Her own necklace
searched
had gone
everywhere.
missing. Then her future mother-in-law, Madame Ezine, appeared at her door holding a velvet box. Inside lay a magnificent string of deep red coral beads, polished smooth with age.
They belong to the first wife of the Balogun dynasty,
Ezine said.
They are a blessing passed from bride to bride.
Amara hesitated. The beads were unusually cold, and for a brief moment she thought she heard something, almost like whispering. But the wedding guests were already arriving. There was no time to question it. So she wore them. And the moment the clasp locked behind her neck, somewhere deep beneath the village earth, something awakened. More than 100 years earlier, the Balogun family had risen to power through betrayal. The village once belonged to the Okonkwo bloodline, a family said to be protected by the river goddess herself. But power breeds greed. Chief Balogun's ancestor had accused the Okonkwo bride of witchcraft on her wedding day. She was dragged to the sacred river wearing her bridal coral beads and drowned before sunset. As the river swallowed her, she made a final vow. The bloodline that steals my place will repay its debt in brides. The moment her body disappeared beneath the water, the coral beads vanished. But they were never truly gone. The elders later discovered a terrible pattern. The beads resurfaced only when the Balogun family prepared for marriage, and each time they returned, they demanded remembrance. Brides disappeared. Ceremonies ended in blood. Entire families were ruined. The beads were never a blessing, they were a summons. 22 years earlier, Madame Ezine had learned the truth the hard way. It was the wedding of her elder sister's daughter, Ifoma, the first Balogun bride in nearly a generation. The ceremony had been grand. The entire village gathered beneath white canopies. Music filled the air, and just before the vows, an elderly servant appeared carrying a velvet box no one recognized. Inside were the same coral beads. No one questioned their arrival. They assumed it was an ancestral blessing. Ifoma wore them. And the moment the priest began the sacred vows, she froze. Her smile vanished. Her eyes widened with terror. Then, before anyone could stop her, she turned and walked toward the sacred river. Not ran, walked, slowly, as though answering a voice only she could hear. The guests chased after her screaming. Ezine herself reached for her niece's arm, but the girl's skin was ice cold. At the riverbank, Ifoma turned once and whispered, "The dead remembers." Then she stepped into the water and vanished beneath the surface without a sound. Her body was never found. The village called it possession. The elders called it judgment. But Ezine called it a warning. That was the day she understood. The curse would come again, and when it did, it would demand another Balogun bride. From that moment, she swore the dead would never claim her family again. If another bride had to pay, she would make sure it was someone else. Madame Ezine knew the truth. She had intentionally given Amara the beads. You see, Tunde wasn't marrying Amara for love. He was marrying her inheritance. Amara was the sole heir to her late father's massive cocoa estate. Once married, her wealth would merge into the Balogun Empire. But there was a problem. An old prophecy said the cursed debt could only be paid by a true Balogun bride. Ezine had no intention of sacrificing her own daughter. Her plan was simple. Let Amara wear the beads. Let the curse claim her. Then blame it on bad luck. Her son would inherit everything. It was the perfect crime, or so she thought. As Amara gasped for air before the altar, the beads glowed a deep crimson. The room shook. The priest dropped his Bible. A cold wind tore through the hall, and then a voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once.
The debt calls for Balogan blood.
The beads suddenly snapped from Amara's neck. They flew across the room like they had a will of their own and wrapped themselves around Madame Ezine's throat. Her scream shattered the stained glass windows. She clawed desperately at the necklace, but it only tightened. Then the doors of the wedding hall slammed shut, locked. No one could move. At the center of the room, the floor cracked open. Water began rising from beneath the earth, and standing within it was the ghostly figure of the drowned bride. The ancient truth. The spirit turned not to Ezine, but to Amara. Then she spoke the words no one expected. You are Okonkwo's blood. The hall froze. Amara's mother had died when she was an infant. She had been told her mother was a traveler from another village. It was a lie. She was the last surviving descendant of the bride who had been murdered a century ago. This was never about claiming Amara. It was about bringing her home. The beads had recognized their rightful bloodline, and they had exposed the Baloguns. The flood water stopped at Amara's feet, but around Madame Ezine, it rose higher, and with it came the hidden truth. From beneath the altar, ancient scrolls surfaced, untouched by time. Land deeds, confessions, signed proof that the Balogun dynasty had stolen not only land, but the very history of the Okonkwo bloodline. The village elders read every word in stunned silence. Madame Ezine fell to her knees, trembling before the spirit of the drowned bride. She expected death, the whole village did. But the spirit simply looked at her and said,
A debt repaid through suffering breeds only another debt.
Then the coral beads loosened from Ezine's throat and fell into Amara's hands. The hall stood frozen. Why had the curse spared her? The spirit turned to Amara, its voice softened.
The debt was never blood. It was remembrance.
The truth struck the elders like thunder. For 100 years, the village had believed the curse demanded punishment, but the river goddess had never sought revenge. She had only demanded that the stolen truth be brought back into the light. The suffering had continued because generation after generation chose greed over confession. The curse had not been broken by punishment. It was broken the moment the truth was finally spoken aloud. Amara did not get married that day. Instead, she walked to the sacred river at sunrise, carrying the coral beads in both hands. The whole village followed. At the river bank, she did not throw them into the water. She placed them gently upon a carved stone and said, Let this not be a symbol of fear, but of memory. As the first rays of dawn touched the beads, they turned from deep crimson to pure white. Then they dissolved into light, and for the first time in a century, the river flowed backward, just for a moment, as if bowing. Years later, the village built a school where the wedding hall once stood. Above its entrance were carved the words, Truth remembered is a debt repaid. And the elders would tell their children, Greed buries the truth, fear protects the lie, but only honesty has the power to break an ancient curse. Because some debts are not paid in blood, they are paid in remembrance. Follow for more stories that will change how you see the world.